Apple surprised me. I'm gonna admit that to me it was like release of iPhone 17 was a lot of ho hum and a lot of yet another phone with saying, hey, we're gonna sell on a better camera. And for some reason, this one took.
So they're about $2 away from an all-time high. I think less than 1% from an all-time high, and that is almost a $4 trillion company. And so you compare Apple with like the likes of Nvidia, it's a $4.4 trillion company. They're only $400 billion off of the richest company, the biggest company in the world, market cap wise. What do you take of this? And Apple, like the reason I compare Apple to Nvidia is obviously Nvidia is not a pure AI play, but they're the AI hardware fueled play.
Did the shovel in the gold rush.
Yeah,
Nvidia is.
the shovel and the gold rush. So using that analogy, what's Apple?
Apple didn't go to the gold rush. They instead were the ones doing dollar cost average, sitting at home, just investing slowly over multiple years. They're the millionaire next door, right? I remember, my dad was a financial planner through most of the 1990s, and he used to tell me, you'd be shocked how many of those tiny little houses over there have a millionaire sitting in them. And I used to, and that's when a millionaire was a big deal, right? Now some huge percentage because of real estate are millionaires, but one of the interesting things about Apple is they've stayed out of the AI game for the most part, and they just keep producing good phones and good software, and they've kept a really loyal fan base, and they're kind of the tortoise and the hare, right? And yeah, Nvidia and some of the other darlings are the hare, but that's kind of the scary part are those the hare, and Apple's just sat there being the tortoise, and they just keep doing their thing, and like you said, they're almost at their top.
And do you think if Apple ends up shipping a halfway decent AI product that it'll catapult them even higher, or do you think that they don't need to?
So a report came out yesterday that everybody internally actually shot down, and that QA has been shooting down all the AI efforts because they all suck. And so the top two, I was just reading a report yesterday. I should have brought it with me, but top report that the two internal competitors for their AI product were shot down by QA. Apple has such strict and stringent rules around their quality assurance that the AI can't pass it. And that's the irony to this, is that Apple either has to lower its standards, which we saw it try to do with Apple Intelligence, and it just backfired, right?
Yeah.
And yet they've stayed out of it, and their stock's at almost an all-time high. So
yeah, I mean, people were laughing. I mean, you and I were guilty of it. We were kind of telling Tim Cook that he has to either get in the race or go home, and he's proved us wrong. So hats off to Tim Cook for there's actually this chart. I didn't think we were going to use it on this podcast, but I think that as you and I both kind of admire Steve Jobs and Tim Cook in different lights. Let me see if I can pull it up in the next 10 seconds. So yeah, here it is. Let me share this with you because I think you'll find this interesting. It's right here. Okay. So you have the two eras of Apple leadership. You have the Steve Jobs era that you can see all the landmarks from iMac, the MacBook Pro, App Store, iPad, iCloud. He got it to a $400 billion company. So he added $344 billion over 14 years. In that same 14-year period, Tim Cook took what Steve Jobs created and added $3 trillion over 14 years. So you can see the amount of innovations that Steve Jobs had. I mean, these are world-changing products. And Tim Cook hasn't innovated a ton. He has not added a lot of game-changing products, but he's added $3 trillion to what Steve Jobs did.
So look at these two, because the interesting comparison here is that Steve Jobs was a brilliant, although mean, he was a mean cuss. But he was a brilliant visionist who could take something and demand excellence to get it to something shipped. Remember that Tim Cook was he COO before? Whatever his position was, he was the one who made stuff happen. He's the one who then took Steve Jobs' vision and could ship and produce. So when you look at the things that he's done, they've all been very safe bets. They've all been but he just is consistently, reliably shipping. And that's it. He's just stayed really reliable. And the company, you don't hear of Apple downtimes. You don't hear of Apple releasing terrible products, right? The Apple AI Intelligence, or the Apple Intelligence was probably his biggest misstep. And I mean, that was his biggest misstep, is one software release, right? And so it's like when you look at his success, it's been the tortoise versus the hare, right? It's just about slow and steady wins a race.
Yeah, I thought that was I think this was a little good
Yeah,
cap to our
that
Apple segment.
that is fascinating. I think it is, and I think Apple's played it really smart.